Hey everybody, just a quick preface before getting into this actual chapter. I thought it was worth mentioning real quick. This chapter actually did surprise me and have me quite emotional throughout, so if I sound weird or different, I'm going to edit around the crying and the occasional sob here or there. So I'm going to edit around the crying and whatnot, but yeah, if I sound weird or if the voice sounds a bit different, it's me trying to get through this chapter, which was surprisingly emotional and hit a few chords for me on some personal notes. But regardless, enjoy. If this book exists, you're in the wrong universe. Tuesday, August 23rd, 12:21 a.m. Gingerbread men. Hunger at 98%. Me. The fire order's been given. We're getting the fuck out of here. You've got just a few minutes until impact. Probably. I don't even know. Good luck. I was about to ask who was talking and what they were talking about, but then heard gunshots and ducked. I smelled gunpowder and sulfur. I was standing in front of a giant concrete pool, round and maybe 100 feet wide. Lit black candles had been placed around the rim, though I noticed several had gone out. There was a maintenance catwalk across the pool that led to a railed platform in the center. On the platform stood Bass, and, sitting at his feet with her legs dangling over the side, Gracie. Next to her was the magpie egg. Bass seemed rather calm, considering the rapid gunfire splitting the air and the several corpses of his friends lying just outside the pool. It appeared the Zarkrax cult had chosen this spot to make their last stand, and we'd missed it. I turned to the voice that had spoken to me and said, "What?" The man was in full SWAT gear, his whole body covered in black aside from his eyes. He wore a helmet with night vision goggles attached to the brim, flipped up out of the way. He was already shouting commands at several other guys dressed the same. Immediately, they all began a rapid but disciplined retreat, shouting dispersal commands at several bystanders I could see farther back, many of them recording the scene with their phones. Only one member of the cult remained standing that I could see, a chubby kid with an AK-47 that looked comically raw in his hands. He was awkwardly trying to return fire. One of the SWAT guys paused in his retreat, turned, and put a bullet in his head. The kid stumbled, forward oddly enough, and did a faceplant into the grass, landing inches from my feet. I found John to the right of me, crouched in the grass, his shotgun in his hand. Amy was to my left, kneeling, quickly trying to orient herself. She had some blades of wet grass stuck to her face and glasses, like she'd recently hit the deck to avoid bullets. I didn't see joy anywhere. Amy said, "We skipped forward again." I said, "God damn you, fancy me." I was so disoriented that it took me a bit to figure out where we were, even though we'd just been discussing it from probably less than a quarter mile away. I saw that a short distance behind us was another of those concrete pools, the clarifier pools, John had said, next to a trio of small brick buildings with fat metal pipes sprouting up from their sides. I heard the hum of machinery, pumps or whatever, but the sound was coming from a distance. We were, of course, in the dormant section of the wastewater treatment plant. The shouted commands of the SWAT team faded as they fled, all of them heading toward the front gate of the facility. I saw swaying lights back there that never retreated all the way. Surely the cameras and cell phones of bystanders who'd shown up to watch. John muttered to me, "What did the SWAT guy say to you before he left?" "He said we had just minutes until impact and that we should get the hell out of here." "Impact? From the space weapon thing?" "Probably. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if something unrelated was about to land on us. How did we not have a plan for if we got fast-forwarded? Fuck!" Amy said, "Hey, David, you have to be calm because we don't have time for you to be anything else. Bass is right there. We just have to talk him down." "Do we even have enough time to get to safe distance? Like if we left right now?" Amy ignored this rather important question, put her hand up like she was trying to get the teacher's attention, and got up on her knees. "Bass, can we talk?" I couldn't see a weapon on his person, and guessed it wouldn't make sense for him to have one. Once you can kill somebody with wormholes, a gun probably feels like going backward. Gracie looked shell-shocked. like she didn't understand anything that she'd just seen, but she didn't act as if she was being held against her will. She wasn't afraid of Bass. She was afraid for him. She reached up, and he took her hand, muttering reassurances. To us, Bass said, I already know what you're going to say, and I already know that you're going to say it anyway. So get on with it, I guess. Amy stood up, slowly. John did the same. I faintly heard the last of the SWAT cops in the distance and the sound of vehicle doors slamming shut. Amy hissed, Put that down, to John, who didn't realize until that moment he had a shotgun in his hand. I wondered if he'd loaded the beanbag rounds or real ones. I wondered if there was a way to find out without just shooting the kid and seeing what happened. Maybe it wouldn't come to that. John set the gun in the grass, but seemed to be making a mental note to remember its location, next to the third corpse from the right. Amy approached the lip of the concrete pool, which came up to her chin. This was as close to Bass and Gracie as she could get without actually climbing over and wading into water so filthy that she could probably just walk across. John, meanwhile, casually made his way to the left, where there was a short set of metal stairs to access the catwalk leading to Bass and Gracie's perch. Gracie was crying now. Bass was trying his best to comfort her. The sulfur stink of the pool hung in the humidity around us, like we were trapped in a Balrog sauna. Before mounting the stairs, John said, Mind if I come up? I don't have a gun. It wouldn't matter if you did, said Bass. John mounted the catwalk, but didn't get too close to the two of them. I didn't know what he was planning, if anything in John's head could be called a plan, but I assumed he wanted us to be in position to force the issue somehow if Amy was unable to talk Bass down. I approached the pool, stepping carefully around the corpse of a kid I thought I recognized from the dollar cinema that night. I reached Amy, taking a spot at the lip next to her. I said, Just real quick, I need to get clear on something. The SWAT guy, before he ran away, said we only had a few minutes until impact. Are you aware of that whole, situation? Bass said, The egg will open, and right after, the simulation will try to kill me and it and everything around us. It won't work. Right. What I'm trying to figure out is the blast radius, and how much time we actually have to get to safety, if it's not already too late. Bass shrugged. Don't matter. Amy said, At least let us take Gracie away from here. Let John take her. He'll drive as fast as he can to get away from whatever's about to happen. In the meantime, you and I can talk. Gracie can do what she wants. Gracie, do you want to go with the weird guy in his windowless skin tone van? She shook her head. Bass, Amy said, look around. All of your friends are dead. All of their families are going to find out soon. Think of all the funerals. Think of all the grief. All the pain. This can't go on. You know it can't. I'm doing this, Bass said, because it can't go on. I said, You have to see by now how this stuff really works. The pain is all these things want. It's their food. They're always happy to trade for it. But I'm telling you, man, they always come out ahead in the end. Look at how this all's worked out so far. Can't you see that this magpie thing, whatever it really is, never wanted the body parts? It just wanted the suffering that comes from collecting them. The pain of the victims and the corrosion of the collector's souls. It's using you. And you're not. We're putting an end to this, and I mean all of it. To people using each other. People getting tortured and raped. This whole universe is like a big machine that cranks out animals that it can shit on. I'm pulling the plug. Somebody has to. Out of the corner of my eye, I sensed John was taking another step closer on the catwalk. Bass didn't seem to notice. Or maybe he was intentionally letting him get close. Amy said, Bass, you don't get to make that choice for other people. They didn't choose to be born, screamed Bass. None of us agreed to this. If nobody had chosen for them already, they wouldn't be hurting. I'm just giving back what was taken from them. The peace of not existing. If you stopped this, and you can't, but if you did, then every starving child, every burn victim, every cancer patient, all their suffering is on you. Every war, every plague, every earthquake, all of it. There's happiness out there, right now, even in this town. Look, you can see the lights out there, all the houses and apartments. There's birthdays and babies and people falling in love right now. If you ask them all if they want to go on, they'd say yes. I can prove that because they make that decision every day to keep going. Because even with all the other stuff, survival is better. No. They do it because they're told things will turn around someday. But for every single one of those birthday parties, skip to the end, and you see all those people dying alone. The one who survives longest gets to attend all their friends' funerals. Then they go out too, confused and crapping their pants. This right here is mercy. John took a step closer on the catwalk. Time was running out. I said, even if we granted you all that, this isn't going to go how you seem to think it will. There are no clean endings. It doesn't work that way. Every single thing the old man told me has come true, said Bass. Exactly like he said. Shit, have I been doing the voice wrong? Every single thing the old man told me has come true, said Bass. Exactly like he asked. Amy said, Do you know who he is? Who he really is? Before he could answer, the egg cracked open. A thin, black appendage snaked out from inside. Gracie saw it and screamed. Amy said, Gracie, we can take you away from here. We can take you back home. Go with John. He won't hurt you. John drew closer still. The egg opened a little more. Gracie screamed again, and, this time, stood up. She tried to pull away from Bass to meet John on the catwalk, who was now just a few feet away. Bass grabbed the little girl's arm, and John pulled something from his back pocket. John lunged forward, past the little girl, and pressed the object against Bass's thigh while screaming something I couldn't quite hear. John had jabbed his obsidian knife into the only non-fatal spot that would still have a chance at incapacitating his target. Bass fell hard against the rails, then collapsed to his knees. The ivory handle of the knife was jutting from his thigh, and I think he was more shocked than anything. John grabbed Gracie, and the two of them ran for the stairs leading off the catwalk. Amy and I ran over to meet them. Bass gathered himself, reached up with his hand, concentrated, and did something. John collapsed as if he'd been flicked by a giant finger, banging his face off the metal grating. I heard bones crunch on impact. As I write this part down, I'm tempted to draw it out. I want to describe the dawning horror of the situation as it unfolded, as I realized exactly what Bass had done and what it meant. I want to play it in slow motion for you, squeezing every drop of drama out of the moment, to really chisel it into your imagination as the pivotal event that it was. I've written it, then deleted it, over and over, because it's all bullshit. The truth is, I didn't even realize it had happened when it happened. The kid did something, and John fell. And I thought he just tripped or gotten knocked over by whatever attack Bass had flung his way. There was maybe a split second of vague recognition that the way John fell wasn't the way a living person falls, instinctively stopping themselves with their hands, keeping their face off the ground at all costs. Actors even do it when they die in movies, always trying to make their fall look somewhat dignified. You never see their heads just bounce off the floor. Real dead people don't fall with dignity. Just as they don't, outside of rare exceptions, go out in some emotional crescendo, surrounded by loved ones, wailing their name. They also don't get any kind of profound last words. Those fortunate enough to live long lives usually spend their final breaths asking for another blanket, or to turn up the TV so they can hear Wheel of Fortune. As such, it actually took a while for me to register what John had said when he'd stabbed Sebastian a few seconds prior to this. The phrase that would go down as his last words. I'm pretty sure it was, "Knife to meet you." Gracie screamed again. So did Amy. The girl recovered and sprinted down the catwalk, jumping off the stairs and zooming past Amy and me, dashing away into the darkness, vanishing between a pair of the brick pump houses. I was frozen in place. Amy ran up the stairs to the catwalk, breathing John's name over and over again. Bass was struggling to his feet, pulling at the knife stuck in his thigh meat. Amy made it to where John lay. From where I stood, I could see his eyes were half open and blank. His nose was bleeding and malformed. Amy fell to her knees and cradled his head in her hand. I told my body to go up there and join them, but I found myself running the other direction, scanning the grass as I ran. Third corpse from the right. I heard a splash and saw that Bass had rolled himself off the platform into the filthy water, disturbing a layer of algae on the surface. He swam toward the edge. I heard Amy saying, "John, hey, can you hear me? Wake up." She turned in Bass's direction. "What did you do? Is he dead? Fix this! Hey, undo it! Hey!" Bass climbed up onto the concrete lid of the pool, coated in so much gunk that he looked like Swamp Thing. I found John's shotgun and snatched it out of the grass. Bass jumped down just in time for me to pivot and point the gun right at his face. I stepped closer, wanting to pull the trigger a foot away from his eyes, figuring even if these were non-lethal rounds, maybe it could still do the job if it was point blank. Bass made a motion with both of his hands, and I fired every barrel. He fell through the grass like he dropped through a trap door. I stopped and looked down to find nothing at all. He was nowhere in sight. The kid had teleported away. It was just the three of us now. You mean the two of us? I heard a noise like a jet engine or a rocket launch, masses of air being violently compressed and then ripped asunder. Above me, a pinprick of light smeared up into the sky. It really did look just like a star was falling on us, just as the holy text had said. Amy said, "Look!" But she somehow wasn't talking about that. She was standing up on the catwalk and pointing at the spot where a giant pipe joined the pool, the inlet valve for all the town's flushes. I climbed up on the lip of the pool to get a better view. In through the valve was flowing swirls and tangles of blackness, like streams of living oil, the dark tendrils reaching out and grasping like tentacles. Amy said, "It was in the trains, the sauce, the armis, and it's all gathering here." As if it mattered now. Who gave a shit about all that? John wasn't breathing. He wasn't John at all. He was a husk, a spent firework, all his chaotic, vibrant life gone. And in that moment, a series of scenes flashed through my mind, almost simultaneously. I saw John dead in the mangled remains of a car, dead on the floor of a party with a stone kid trying to give him CPR, dead while flatlining in a hospital bed, dead of a gunshot wound to the skull, dead of a gunshot wound to the chest, his charred bones in the remains of a house fire, his body torn apart in a Las Vegas casino. Dozens of deaths, hundreds, flashing across my mind as if they were all familiar to me, even though they weren't. It can only ever end this way. Deep down, you know that. I blinked and tried to shake it off. The water was entirely black now. It had filled faster than should have been possible, but possibilities never meant anything here. The blackness was bubbling up from the surface, turning into vertical appendages and splitting into smaller ones, until the entire surface of the pool had become a mass of tiny, grasping black hands, like every soul in hell reaching up at the rumor of a drop of water. The roaring was growing louder overhead, and I found myself rooting for it. The plastic egg was open fully now. I hadn't even noticed the final hatching, and I saw writhing appendages emerge, something crawling out. I ran over to the stairs. I had to move John's body from this spot. I couldn't let this newborn thing have him, even if what was left of him was just that limp, discarded meat. I joined Amy on the catwalk and told her to get John's feet. I checked the platform to track the progress of the horror being born from the egg, but it was no longer visible. A column of those black hands had reached up from below, twisting themselves into a single shape that swallowed up the platform where Bass and Gracie had been standing just minutes ago. They were forming a perfect black sphere. Amy started to help me with John's corpse, but then stopped because she seemed to realize it wouldn't matter. That bright streak overhead was now lighting the whole area like a sunrise. The thunder it made filled the world. The end would come within seconds. Maybe it was already here. And then all was quiet.